going to start with 2.5 cups of flour and make a little well in the middle. And then we're going to do a teaspoon of salt, kind of sprinkle that all over. And then kind of mix that in a little bit. Get our well going here again. And then we're going to do 4 eggs and a tablespoon of oil. So all we're going to do is just crack those eggs directly in the middle here. We're going to add in our tablespoon of oil. And very gently, we're going to start making this up. And just grab a little bit of flour from each of the sides as you go. And what we're going to be looking for is a very smooth, pale yellow ball. So what we want to do is we want to kind of get this a little crumbly to begin with, which is what I'm doing by mixing it in with a fork. And then once we start getting pretty decently crumbly, we're going to use our hands and really get in there and work and shape this pasta dough. What we're doing by kneading it is we're allowing the gluten to set up. And the gluten's what's going to give it kind of the structure and texture. So now that we're to this point, we're going to go ahead and just start working this. You can see it's nice and crumbly. It's starting to get a little bit of a yellow color to it. And really use the palm side of your hands to get in there and use your shoulders. Push from the shoulders whenever you're kneading any kind of dough or any kind of bread. Once this starts developing, you're going to notice it no longer sticks to your hands. It's going to just start sticking to the ball. And you may not use all of the flour on your workspace. Once it starts feeling like it's getting pretty good, then don't worry about the rest of the flour. But I do try to get as much of the egg in there as I possibly can. So now, as you can see, we're starting to get a nice pale yellow ball here. If you wanted to use a KitchenAid mixer, you would just put on a dough hook and do it all in the KitchenAid mixer. Sometimes using your hand is better because you can really feel the dough, figure out what the moisture content of it is. Now I've got several more minutes kneading this dough, but once I have it where it's feeling like it's nice and smooth, and when I push a finger in the middle of it, it'll bounce back. That's when I know that my dough is ready to rest. And we want to let it rest for about 20 minutes or so. And what you're going to do is you're going to wrap it in a little bit of saran wrap and then go ahead and place it out on a counter and let it rest for about 20 minutes. During that time, we'll start to get our butternut squash ready. Now, butternut squash is a beautiful squash. If you haven't had it before, it tastes a little bit like pumpkin. If you don't want to buy butternut squash, you can actually use a can of pumpkin. But to prepare the butternut squash, all you're going to do is you're going to take a peeler, just like a vegetable peeler, and peel off the husk. The husk is very thick and it's very hard. Now, when we make soups with butternut squash, typically I just cut them in half and then season them, roast them, and then pull them out of the skins after I've roasted them. But this, if you're going to make the butternut squash, is easier for you to peel it ahead of time, dice it into quarters, and then once you have it in quarters, sprinkle it with a little bit of olive oil and then roast it at about 400 for about 20 to 30 minutes. Take it out and you can either smash it with a fork, you could use an immersion blender or a KitchenAid mixer and really or a food processor even, really kind of smush it and make it all nice and smooth. And then what you're going to do is you're going to do equal parts butternut squash to Parmesan cheese. So let's say that you ended up with a cup of butternut squash, then you're going to do a cup of grated Parmesan cheese. If you end up with 2 cups of butternut squash, you're gonna do 2 cups of grated Parmesan cheese. And what you'll do is you'll just mix those together really, really good. And once you got them all mixed together, then that's going to become the filling for the pasta, for our raviolis. Now, as I said, if you don't have butternut squash, you can absolutely grab a can of pumpkin and use just a regular can of pumpkin to make this recipe. So if you've got a can or a cup and a half of pumpkin, then you'll use a cup and a half of Parmesan cheese. Now let's say that you don't have Parmesan cheese. You could use mozzarella. Parmesan gives it a little bit better of a taste. If you got provolone, you could use provolone too. Again, Parmesan's gonna give you a little bit better of a taste. So as you can see here, I'm starting to get pretty decently smooth. If I push on it, we're bouncing back pretty decently. I'm gonna work it for about another minute and a half here, and then I'm gonna wrap it, clean up my station, and get started on the butternut squash. Okay, so this is a butternut squash. So like I said, what you would do is you'd use your peeler, you'd peel it, you'll dice it up into about 1-inch squares, cook it with some olive oil, roast it on about 400 for about 30 minutes or so, take it out and mash it. Now, if you want to cheat, you can get you just a can of pumpkin. Don't get the pie mix because that won't taste very good. But you can get you a can of pumpkin. And again, it's going to be equal parts of pumpkin or squash to Parmesan cheese. So, like I said, I'm cooking for the family tonight, so we're making quite a bit, and I'll probably end up spilling this over. But all I'm going to do is just mix this up really, really good. Give it a couple good turns here. Told you I'd make a mess. Now, let's say that you wanted to do something super fancy. You could always add some more herbs in here. Think something like sage, because when we are going to make our pasta sauce, it's going to be a brown butter sauce, and we're going to use sage for that. So now that I have this pretty decently combined, you can taste it, see if it needs salt and pepper. I find that it doesn't need a ton of salt because of the Parmesan cheese. The Parmesan is pretty salty in and of itself, so I don't really worry about that. Now, you can spoon this out by the spoonfuls, or you can cheat like I do, because my boys own a bakery. We're going to use a piping bag. So give yourself a decent cup so that you don't make a huge mess. Open it up on the inside, and then spoon in your pie mixture, or not your pie mixture, your butternut squash mixture. And then once you get it all spooned in there pretty decently, you're going to notice you're going to have an air gap down at the bottom. What you're going to do is you're going to take it, give it a twist, and then spin it around really fast. And what that'll do is put everything down at the bottom. And then what you can do is just set this to the side. So we've got our pasta dough that's wrapped. It's going to be set to the side. We've got our butternut squash and Parmesan, which is going to be set to the side. And the next thing that we're going to start on is we are going to start on our brown butter sauce. Okay, so how this is going to work is I'm going to use an induction burner. Now these heat with magnets, so nothing gets terribly hot around the edges. It only heats the bottom of the pan, but it cooks very quickly. Now if you are using a regular burner, gas, electric, it's going to take longer to make this brown butter reduction. But let me show you kind of what we got going on here. So I've got a little bit of thyme. I'm going to do a whole stick of salted butter. And then I've got about 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. Now you can use cherry vinegar, you can do apple juice or grape juice, whatever makes your heart happy. But what we're going to do is we're going to start by putting our butter in the pan, and we're going to get this going. What we're looking for with this butter is we're looking for this butter to start getting little brown flecks in it, and it's going to give off this very nutty, earthy aroma. And when we get to that point, we know that we're ready. Now, while this is cooking, what I'm going to do is I am I'm going to destem the thyme. So just going to take it, pull it backwards, take it, pull it backwards, and get a few of these little thyme leaves off here. I don't need them all, just a little bit. Thyme is a wonderful herb that you can use with poultry, you can use it with pork, you can use it with vegetables. It gives it a very nice, earthy, like almost umami flavor. So that should be good. Now, honestly, using sage, like fresh sage, would be better. I thought there was some here. It was no longer good, so I'm just going to use some dried sage. And I'm going to use about a tablespoon of that dried sage. Obviously, if you're using regular sage or fresh sage, it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to give it a little bit fresher of a taste, and you probably don't want as much. Now, you can see I'm really starting to fry down this butter. And what we're waiting for is we're waiting for some brown specks. So we're just going to let this simmer. Take several minutes. This is not a fast process at all. And you can see the whey proteins are separating from the butter, which means it's a good butter and it's not made of margarine. And that's essentially what burns or gives you that brown butter appearance. Once I start seeing those brown flakes, I'm going to throw in the sage, I'm going to throw in the thyme, and then I'm going to throw in the red wine vinegar. It is going to sizzle, crack, and pop, and that's what we want. We're just going to turn off the heat at that point and let it simmer down. And you can see now we've got the browned butter going on there. We've got nice brown chunks going on. The color is a nice dark color. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the heat here. I'm going to throw in the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to dust my parchment paper with just a little bit of semolina flour. Semolina flour is what Isaac uses on the bottom of your pizza crust. It's kind of a coarser flour and it kind of keeps things from sticking. Now, you don't have to use semolina on there. You can use just regular flour, but you just don't want it to stick. So now that my dough is adequately rested, what I'm going to do is I am going to cut this down into fours. So just kind of make like a little plus sign on there. I'm going to take 3 of these and wrap them back up so they don't get all dried out because I can't work that fast. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to shape this into kind of like a loggy potato kind of thing. And then I'm going to dust it with a little bit of flour, and then we're going to start running this through my KitchenAid pasta maker. So this is going to be our KitchenAid pasta maker. You can find the hand crank ones. Those ones work really well as well. There are numbers right here. We're going to start on a 1, and then with every pass we're going to go up until we get to about a 7. We want this to be very, very thin and nearly see-through when we're done. Like I said, I've got my dough. It's got a little bit of flour on it, and what we're going to do is we're going to feed this through. Now, it's going to get a little bit noisy, so I'll cut out the sound, but after we feed it through the first time, we're going to fold it like a trifold, and then we're going to put the open end down, and that's going to be the only time that we fold it again after our initial fold. After that, we're just going to keep running it through, and then we're going to lay it out on our surface. So here's our first one. We're going to trifold it down a little bit more, and then we're going to feed the open end through. We're going to turn it to 2. If you see little ripples in it, add a little bit of flour to it. I'm going to go to 3.